Success webinar. This is the third in our series, and today's topics are complying with specific product rules and quarantines, and labels and voluntary certifications. These webinars are hosted by Cultivating Success, which was a program established in 2000 by University of Idaho Extension, Washington State University, and the nonprofit Rural Roots. Today is our third session in our 2023 webinar series. And if you missed our first sessions on March 14th and 15th, those sessions were recorded and are available on the Cultivating Success website. Just a couple of tips. As you know from our slow start this morning, we can have technical challenges. If you are having any problems with your speed, you can type into the chat. And Lauren is standing by to let you know if those challenges might be with our presenters or if they might be with the speed of your own computer. It might help to close the other programs running on your computer. And if you have any...
Thank you everyone for having me today. My name is Amber Jackson and I work for the Idaho Department of Ag, not to be confused with the USDA or the United States Department of Ag. I've worked here for, this November is going to be my 9th year. And I used to do this same job down in southern Idaho, based out of Twin Falls, and now I'm based in Lewiston. So if you are anywhere from the top of Latah County to the bottom of Idaho County and over to the two borders, you're in my territory, and I am here to help you out, or at least get you directed towards someone who can help you out. So next slide. Great. So let me tell you a little bit about our department. We were created in order to carry out the laws and rules that protect Idaho agriculture. And the thing you have to understand about law and rulemaking is almost none of it is proactive. It's all reactive. So if there's a law about it, that generally means that somebody somewhere along the way made a mistake. Some of you are old enough as I am to remember that cars didn't used to come with seat belts automatically. You had to pay extra for that. But then a law was later passed once it was shown that seat belts save lives. And so now all cars come with seat belts. So all the laws that we have are put there in order to protect the industry and protect the growers. Whenever possible, we welcome the involvement and the input of the people most affected in order to make the law the most beneficial to them. An example of that is the nursery license fee, and we can come back to that later. Next slide. Okay, so why do we have so many laws and rules? Because there are a lot. I know there are a lot, and they are worded in legalese, and it's hard to understand. By one estimate by the University of Florida in 2022, invasive species alone, that's mammals, bacteria, weeds, insects, cost the United States economy more than $21 billion. And part of my job is also doing exports. So if you grew it in my territory and you want to send it to the Netherlands, I help you do that. And in all my years of doing this, no one seems to want our cooties. I don't get it. But then I think, wait, we don't want their cooties either. And so that's what most of these rules set out to do, is prevent the sharing of cooties, essentially. And we really want to help you succeed. So sometimes the laws and rules are kind of a pain in the rear to comply with. And we understand that. It's kind of a necessary evil. My job is to help you understand and comply with the rule, but my primary goal is to help you succeed. And if I am ever on your doorstep delivering bad news, I just want you to understand that it's not because I want to, it's because I have to. Next slide. So let's look at what Idaho is producing. And as you can see by this infographic, quite a lot of it has to do with dairy and cattle. I work for the plants division, and so my expertise is in potatoes, which they actually have their own division. They are their own thing. I just do a teeny tiny bit of potatoes for the University of Idaho, so I do know a little bit about it. but most of it that I do is more towards hay. We ship a lot of hay out of the United States, and Idaho produces a lot of top quality hay. We produce a lot of wheat, a lot of barley, and a lot of dry beans. Down in the South, in the Magic and Treasure Valleys, they produce thousands of tons of beans that are top quality for seed. And so a lot of that goes overseas, and most of Europe plants our seed for their table crops, for green beans, table beans, things like that. Next slide. So focusing on what I do. Today, we're just going to do a very general overview, and then at the end, you're going to have my contact information so that if you think of anything later, or if you're thinking of expanding into something and you have questions, you can reach me at any time. I have a cell phone. I'm readily available by email, and if you want to meet, I'm happy to do that as well. But so I wear several different hats in this position. In fact, all the inspectors do. The state is divided into 12 sections, and so there's one inspector for each section. I have one of the largest, but also not as densely populated as some of them in the South. So the first topic we're going to cover is nursery licenses, because this is the one that I have the most questions coming to me about. This is the one that there's the most confusion about. Oftentimes when I find someone who needs a nursery license, they've been operating for a while and didn't understand that they needed a nursery license. And that is because they checked with the city when they got their business license. And according to the city, all you need to operate is a business license, right? Well, I wish it was all in one neat website that you could go to and be like, what kind of licensing do I need? If you sell any kind of cut flowers or plant starts, potted plants or bulbs or seed that you have grown, you actually do need a nursery license. And whoops. And that is whether you're selling it at your farm stand at the end of your driveway, or if you're selling it to the Moscow Co-op. I know a lot of people like to do that. There is one exception. The Moscow Farmers Market has an umbrella license for nursery products. So if you're selling the cut flowers or extra tomato starts at the Moscow Co-op or the farmers market, you're covered by theirs. You do not need an extra one. However, if you are selling cut flowers at the farmers market and at your farm stand at the end of your driveway, you do need your own nursery license for the farm stand. And if you have any questions about that, I would be happy to answer them. Let's go on to the next slide. So what happens during a nursery inspection? Because once you get your nursery license, you are subject to being inspected. Well, as you can see, I am not a big scary person, and I don't enjoy scaring people. So I take a very relaxed approach to it. And on the rare occasions when I have found something that needs addressing, we work together to figure out a solution that works for you and complies with the law. So what I like to say that mostly I'm looking for snakes and alligators, things that really don't belong there, like Japanese beetles or invasive garden snails and red fire ants. I have never found a snake or an alligator on an inspection. Occasionally, I will find diseases. I haven't found any of the big ones that are on this slide: the sudden oak death, the late blight, the white rot of alliums. Sometimes you find a little powdery mildew, and we would talk about possible treatment options if I did find that during your nursery inspection. I'm also looking for invasive species. In the last couple of years, I believe it was in the last 5 years, they added Scotch brooms and Dyer's broom, Spanish broom, and tree lucernes. Those are Cytisus, Chamacytisus, and Genista to the list. And that was a kind of a big deal because those are very hardy plants and tough to kill. And so you might sometimes see them at your big box stores. I have found them since the law went into effect, and I have had to stop sale them. If you see them at a big box store or at another location, please let me know. There's only so much of me to spread over my entire territory, and so I can't always get to everything in a timely manner. Water hyacinth, if you have a pond, I know a lot of people like the look of water hyacinth, but unfortunately it is on the list, and so you can't sell that. I'm also looking for regulatory issues, like if you're selling seed potatoes, those must have a blue tag with them. If you're selling grape plants, they must come from an appropriate vendor and have the appropriate certifications. I'm looking for outdated seeds, hops from outside the regulated area, those kinds of things. And once again, if I do find those things, we work together to figure out a solution. I have found grapes in the past that didn't come from an appropriate vendor. We worked with the vendor to take those back so that the seller could get full credit on their purchase. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about some of those regulatory issues that I might find. Seed potatoes, all seed potatoes in the state need to have a blue tag. And you can see right there in the center of the screen, the 3 levels of tags that seed could have. I've never seen green tag. I've never seen yellow tag. I believe the only acceptable thing in Idaho, because we're so proud of our Idaho potatoes and we want to protect that industry, is the blue tag, which is the top quality seed. And so when you go to like a hardware store or a feed store and you see potatoes like in the bushel bins, like in the picture on the right hand side of your screen, they need to have the blue tag displayed, and very often you'll just kind of find it floating loose in there. If this vendor is selling potatoes in packets, whether that's a cute little box or this the little bag here on the left hand side, those need to have blue tags as well. Or at the very least, you need to have displayed a photocopy of the blue tags. And you would have to have those available for me to inspect when I did your inspection. And I see that we did get a question. And so what's the difference between the colors of the tag? So what it boils down to is this yellow tag on the bottom is the bare minimum for what it would qualify to be seed. And what goes into potato grading is you're looking at the shape, the size, the quality of the potato. So top quality potatoes get that blue tag, bare minimum, and I mean, those are some ugly potatoes, get that yellow tag, and then somewhere in the middle is the green. And then if they don't qualify for any of those things, then they qualify for table potatoes. And one of my pet peeves, I have a horticulture degree. One of my pet peeves is these like TikTokers who are like, you can just go to the store and buy a potato and cut it into pieces. Please don't do that. Please don't. Those potatoes were not grown to seed standards, and so they weren't tested for diseases the way that seed potatoes need to be tested for diseases. And you run the risk of giving yourself a problem later on down the line, and it might be really difficult to treat or eradicate if it's treatable at all. Things like nematodes can come into your garden that way. You don't want those problems. Let's go on to the next slide. Onions and garlic. So up here, things are pretty loosey-goosey, but you can see in the map on the right-hand side of your screen, all of those counties in gold in the south, that's what we call our onion white rot control areas. And the reason that exists is because those counties in gold, in addition to Malheur County, which is on the Oregon side of the border, that is a major onion producer in this country. If you've ever eaten onions, you've eaten onions from this area. Or if you've ever planted onion starts, they may have come from this area. Very good growing conditions, very high quality crops. So our concern is onion white rot or allium white rot can affect all onions, all garlic, including ornamental alliums. And I know there are some really beautiful ones out there. They've got the great big globe heads. But in order to protect the industry in those gold colored counties, they restrict what can move in and out. So if you are growing, let's say, specialty garlic up here in Latah County or Nez Perce County, and you're selling it online as a specialty product, you cannot send it into those counties for planting. You can send it there if it's for eating, but they cannot plant it. The rules are so strict, and it's really expensive to plant bulbs. They can plant from seed down there, or they can plant from starts that were produced in the white rot control area, but they can't plant anything else. And that's because this disease that you see on the left hand of your screen, you see it both on the onion bulb, this fuzzy white stuff, looks pretty innocuous. Even I admit, like, you keep an onion too long in the cellar and you pull it out and it looks a little like that. It's not this disease. This is something different. And here it is in a row of onions where the plant has just collapsed and is dead. So this disease is very hardy in its sclerotia phase and will last in the soil for decades. And I was trying to find online a better number. The number I found was 15 plus years, but in all honesty, in our view from the regulatory side and from the producer side, once you have it, you're never growing onions again. You can never get rid of it. There is no known treatment that is financially viable at this time. And research is ongoing, but until we get something that works, you do not want this disease. And you want to be really careful about what you plant. Once again, please don't plant garlic or onions you bought at the store in the grocery section. They're not grown to seed standards, and having this disease in your garden would be a real bummer, because I love growing garlic. I love fresh garlic, and I love like the purple varieties that you just can't buy anywhere in the stores. Next slide. All right, fruit trees and shrubs are where things start to get more complex. And so if you want to sell fruit trees or shrubs that we talk about today, please get a hold of me and we'll line those out very particularly. But the broad strokes are that we are very concerned about an insect called plum curculio. And it's all your apple trees, all of your cherry and apricot trees, Cydonia is quince, and then Pyrus is pears, and the soil within the drip line of these plants that have fruited. So if you are purchasing, let's say through an online catalog from an area that's known to have plum curculio, we need to get certain certifications to ensure that it's free of the insect. And also, it's probably best if those things come bare root. Peach trees, when I do a nursery inspection, I'm looking at the peach trees to make sure they don't have peach leaf curl. And so if you're hoping to sell those, we need to make sure that the stock you buy comes in certified virus free or from a county that's free of the viruses of concern. Grapes, we have a burgeoning, like a little baby growing up wine industry in Idaho. It's not huge yet, but we're hoping that it's going to get there. And so in order to protect them, we're being very proactive about the types and certifications that need to come with grapes that come into the state. And so if you're looking for grapes, everywhere I go, everybody asks me, where can I get grapes? Because you might contact a grower and they're like, oh no, we don't send into Idaho. Get a hold of me. I can put you in touch with some companies that have experience sending grapes into Idaho and are willing and able to meet our requirements. Next slide. Oh, hemp dropped its pea. And then just really quick, because I don't see a lot of these up here, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Hops, hemp, and mint are also heavily regulated. We grow a lot of mint and a lot of hops down in the southern part of the state. I haven't seen any of it up here, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. So let me know if you have any questions about those. Next slide. Japanese beetle. This is the biggest one. And this is the biggest one I can tell you because it has already cost our state a lot of money, a lot of money. You can see from the map in upper right quadrant. All of that area in red on the eastern seaboard and going towards the Midwest, those are Japanese beetle infested areas. And everything in orange is places where infestation is taking root. And if you'll direct your eyes over here to Idaho, you'll see some areas in gold. And that is because there have been fines in the past. We trap for these every year all over the state, from the top to the bottom, we trap. There have been fines, and we have successfully eradicated Japanese beetle in the Boise area. We are only the second state to be able to do that. The other one was Utah. They had an outbreak in Utah. And so the reason that this is such a big deal is if Idaho were to become a Japanese beetle infested state, if it were to turn red on that map, our nursery growers would have a really hard time exporting anything with soil or any ball and burlap. And we have a couple of big ball and burlap tree producers that we really want to protect. This beetle is voracious and it eats almost anything, and it loves the things that we love. So like your roses would be history. You can see here in the lower left-hand corner the feeding pattern of the adult beetles. They skeletonize everything, and they like to start with the flowers because best part, right? And then their grubs, their larval stage is in the ground. It's in the turf grass in your lawns or golf courses. And the grubs are voracious and will eat away at the roots until eventually you can literally grab the end of a turf and pull it up like a carpet. It's absolutely astonishing to see. And so we spent several years and lots of money to get it gone from Boise. And knock on wood, it's going to stay gone. There's an outbreak in Caldwell, and there's one in Pocatello, but they're being controlled and they're being treated, and hopefully we'll be able to eradicate there as well. Next slide. Bees and apiaries. I don't know if we have any apiculturists with us today, but this is just to let you know that if you have less than 50 hives, you're considered a hobbyist, and we encourage you to register with us, but it's not required. If you have 50 hives or more, then you're considered a commercial apiary, and you do need to register with us. And if your hives are going to be migratory, if they're going to go to California, if they're going to go to Washington to help with the pollinations, then you might use our services for inspection to cross those borders, because there is certifications needed, because once again, nobody wants our cooties and we don't want theirs. And then there are honey standards, but that's not my area. That's fresh fruit and vegetable, I believe, and I could put you in touch with whoever handles the honey standards if you had any questions about that. Next slide. Seed dealers. Okay. If you, let's say you grow beautiful flowers and you want to collect and sell the seeds, you would likely need a seed dealer's license. You're exempt if you're only selling seeds in packets of 8 ounces or less, and that's a one-time application. And then if you are big enough that you're selling seed professionally, it's a sliding scale. It's either $50 or $100 for your license. And then there are the labeling laws on the right hand of the screen. And I know that looks like a lot of information, but if you look at most seed packets that you buy from the store, they actually do have that information on there. It's just broken up in a different way. Oh, we've got a couple questions. Grapes that are propagated in the state. No, those do not require a specific certification. If they are from in-state, they should be good to go. I would be interested to see who's producing, though. As a horticulture student, I studied grapes, and I haven't run into anybody producing grape starts here, and I'd be really interested to know what kind of rootstocks they're using and what kind of grafts to optimize performance in Idaho soils. So get with me about that. I'm interested. And then we have another question. I have recently seen a traveling tree man passing through towns in southern Idaho, selling trees that aren't even zone hardy. Never thought to ask about a nursery license, but seemed a little sketchy. Is this something that you see often, the traveling tree man? That gentleman is a special case. We are aware of him, and he does have a license for each one of the locations he goes to. He has been to Lewiston. I've seen him. And yeah, about the zone hardiness, I definitely would not plant a lot of those things outdoors. But I also can't tell the industry what they can and can't sell, if that makes sense. We have to leave that up to the consumer's prudence. So for instance, he was selling some citrus trees. I kind of wanted one, but I've never had one that I haven't killed. Like, they're so hard for me to do. I definitely wouldn't plant that in my yard. That would be a pet that I keep in the house in like the sunniest corner and like have grow lamps on it and do the whole 9 yards. It's not something we see often, I guess, is the answer to the question. And yes, he is licensed for all of his locations. Southern Idaho doesn't use grafted grapes. They aren't winter hardy here, so they need to be on their own rootstock. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, so I went to college in Oregon, and own rooted grapes are very rare there. So that's something I need to read more about. That's interesting. Let's go to the next slide.
We also have
Okay.
a question that came in about the seed labeling laws. The question is, if you're exempt, do you still need to adhere to the label law?
Yes, you do. But there is an abridged portion. Can we back up again and look at those again? Yeah, okay. So the labeling laws, if you're just doing small packets, needs to have, let me pull up a packet. Okay, I just happen to have this at my desk, Burpee Organics. You would need to basically follow what's on this. So that first line, kind and variety, it's right here. You can see it's a tomato. The variety is sweetie. Lot number, turn the packet over. It has a lot number 10 right there. And I advise you to put lot numbers on anything you ever produce, just because if, heaven forbid, some action should have to be taken against it. Like, let's say that I send this to our seed lab for a germination test, and it's bad germ. It doesn't meet our requirements. Only this lot is affected, only lot number 10. If this had no lot number on it, all of this variety, all of this kind and variety would be affected. So lot numbers are good tools to use. Origin, that would be part of the name and address of seed labeler because you're producing it yourself. That section where it's pure seed, inert matter, weed seed, noxious weed seed, if you're an exempt person, you don't need to put that on there. That's mostly for giant lots of seed, like if you're buying wheat to sow or barley to sow. The germination percentage and date of test, I would need to look up and see if you'd actually need to do that, because most people don't keep seed lots from year to year. And as we know, even when stored properly, germination follows this downward trend. But most people aren't keeping it from year to year. You're going to produce one year and you're going to sell all of it, and then whatever you don't sell, you might replant for yourself. So I'd have to check on that one, but definitely put the name and address of you are the labeler. And then there's also a labeling license that I would need to look into. The treatment statement wouldn't apply because you're probably not applying treatment to your own seed. That's also for big industry. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. All right, let's go ahead. Okay, and then just a word on invasives in the pet trade. This was a bigger deal a few years ago. You can see right in the center of your screen, that little turtle, that is a red-eared slider. And they are on the Idaho invasive species list. They make great pets in other parts of the country, but we have determined that they could become invasive here and outcompete native turtles for habitat and nesting spaces. So they're not allowed. Many years ago, before I started, there was somebody going around to county fairs and either selling baby turtles, red-eared sliders, or giving them away as prizes for a game, and we can't allow that. And so I just wanted to point out that these things do exist. You cannot have a capybara. I'm sorry. Most large cats are out of the question. On your screen, you see a monk parakeet, also known as a Quaker parrot. Those are not allowed. Piranha, great pets, beautiful fish. You cannot have those. Bullfrogs are forbidden, and most types of crayfish. If you have any questions about those, please get a hold of me. Next slide. Okay, and then a word on homemade pet treats, because I sometimes make little treats for dogs because all my friends have dogs. If you decided that you wanted to sell these at the farmer's market, they would be subject to Idaho's feed laws, which means you would have to label them in accordance. You would have to submit a label to the registration department. Getting it registered costs $40 per product. It's affordable, and it would be subject to sampling and analysis by our lab. When that happens, what I do is I take the sample, I give it to the lab, they just test it and make sure that what's promised on the label, that guaranteed analysis, nutritional analysis, is what's actually in the product. And I do this with pet foods all over the state. When I do registration checks at Petco, it takes me at least 6 weeks because I do everything from top to bottom. And this is one of the ways that we protect consumers, to make sure that the companies are delivering on the promises they make on the bag.
So with these types of pet treats that are multiple ingredients, is that a different type of treat than, let's say, we have a livestock producer that is drying organs into more like a pet jerky? Would that also fall under the pet treat rules?
That's an interesting gray area in the law. So pet treats have to be registered. Pet chews do not. And the way that we define a chew versus a treat is the chew does not have a nutritional guarantee on it. It does not tell you, I promise this much protein, this much fat, this much fiber. A chew is just like, this is just something for your dog to keep them occupied or to work on, but we're not promising that it's got any benefits whatsoever. And so really it depends on how it's labeled, because like you said, organs. Well, we think of pet chews as being like made of raw hide or bone, but they can be made of lung or other organs. And so it really comes down to how they label it. But once again, in fact, that's going to, I think, lead me into the next slide. Can we pull that up? Yes, the call to action. We need your help. So like I said, there are 12 inspectors that cover the entire state, and some of us have really big territories, and we can't catch everything. We want to be here as a service. We're really not here to ruin your day. So we rely on the public to spread the news of what is required, or to let me know that there's somebody new in the area who's getting started, so that I can proactively reach out to them and help them get everything set up that they need so that they can be successful and have all their licensing. So like, for instance, let's say that the producer who's drying down pet organs, let's say you brought that to my attention. I looked it up in the system, and I learned that this person wasn't registering something that he was labeling with nutritional guarantees, labeling it as a treat. Then I would get a hold of him and say, hey, I see you have this product. Let's get you through the right channels to get your products registered, and you'll be good to go. And that way I'm also available to them for future expansion, because most of us, we start a little business on the side. Like, say one year we have extra flowers in our garden and we're like, I think I'm going to sell bouquets at the end of my driveway. So you start out selling bouquets, and then you have a couple years where your dahlias do really, really well, and you're like, or your irises. Everybody's irises get crowded eventually, right? So you're like, I think I can sell a few of these divisions. So our businesses expand when we're successful. And so I want to be here to be available to you so that when you have questions about expansion, you can ask easily, you can find the answer easily, that kind of thing. All right. And then the last slide is just my contact info. Go ahead.
Well, we have two questions. So this is a great lead into actually both of these questions. So the first one is, can a consumer check to see if treats are registered?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so, because when I check registrations, I have to sign into a database. On the other hand, if they are, okay, so a consumer probably can't check registrations. You would just ask me and I could tell you. But if you are someone who has a registration, that means you have an FFS account and you might be able to check to see if this other product is registered. Something I frequently get is the example of selling cut flowers from your garden. New nursery licensees don't know that they need a license to do that. And so I do get emails and phone calls saying, hey, there's somebody new in the area. I looked online because I have a nursery license and I don't see that they're licensed. Can you get a hold of them? So there are times when you can look up to see when someone else is registered, but mostly I think you'd have to ask your inspector.
Okay, that's great to know. And then our final question for you is, do you need a nursery license if you're selling cut flowers on your farm stand that another farm that has a nursery license grew?
Yes, unless their nursery license is for your property, because the nursery licenses are actually location specific. So let's say your business has grown so much that you're not only selling at your own farm stand, but you're selling down the road at your friend's farm stand. Each location needs to have a license. It doesn't matter who the license holder is, but each location must be licensed.
Okay, that's great. Well, Amber, thank you so much for your presentation today and answering all of these questions. For those of you that are on the webinar, we will make sure that all of Amber's slides and her contact information are available on the Cultivating Success website. And our next topic is on labels and voluntary certifications. And so we have several presenters from Idaho State Department of Agriculture who are going to share about different programs that Idaho State Department of Agriculture has. And then we are also going to move in and have a perspective from a farmer who is using a lot of different labels in his farm. So I want to go ahead and turn the screen over to you, Erica, to talk about Idaho Preferred.
Oh, okay.
Let's redo your intro.
Okay, thank you. All right, you guys, my name is Erica White. I'm a marketing trade specialist over here at ISDA under the Marketing Development Division, predominantly leading our domestic efforts here in the state. So that's really focused on the Idaho Preferred program, which is a voluntary labeling system, but more so as a marketing arm for our producer community throughout the state. So I'll go into a little bit of what that is and then just briefly explain some of the benefits. Okay, so we say farm to consumer verified, but what that really truly means is that our mission is to promote, connect, educate our Idaho's farmers, ranchers, and food crafters so we can help them grow their marketplace. But how we do that is being able to go through and verify that our producers who are participating in our program are agriculturally connected. This first little screen gives you an overview of the program's diversity and the types of members, we refer to them, but they really are producers and our supporting organizations that we have a part of the program. So we feel that it's really diversified, split between producers, processors, and our processors we refer to would be like our ranchers, because that's a processed product, dairy, processed product, anything that's like a cottage food or crafted product. And then we do have a retailer, our farmers market, restaurants, and then other supporting organizations, which would be like our commodity commissions. So in terms of verifying, I said that we want to make sure that it's agriculturally derived in some capacity, grown, raised, crafted here within the state. So the logo that you guys see oftentimes that's more consumer facing at like grocery stores is our way of indicating to the consumer that they are purchasing an item that is agriculturally derived from a local producer throughout the state. We have rules and bylaws that were put in place 20 years ago. I have this link right in the screen right here that takes you to the member requirements that actually lists out the laws. If you guys want to get in detail, you can go read through those based on your niche category. But this kind of gives you on the right-hand side under member requirements, the perspective of for each different category, what that might look like. So as an example, usually our fresh produce is going to be 100% agricultural content by weight, which would be fully verified. So we, as the program, we would go through and we would ensure that each product that is being produced is actually done so on site. So we do that through site visits and being able to confirm where the sourcing comes from. In terms of processed food and beverage, that can be a little bit different based on each category. So an example might be maybe there's a producer out there who's taking a honey product and then they're agriculturally manipulating it in some way by adding in herbs, spices, what have you. Maybe they're making like a mix-in drink. And so we always weigh out the volume and weight of the content that's agriculturally derived in comparison to the other product that's being added in. And so for some of those, our minimum requirement would be 20% agricultural content by weight in order to be a part of that program. And again, that's just all done through sourcing verification. An example of maybe a product out there that we would verify would be wine, where some of their product line is what we would consider program eligible, and some of it would be not. So if there was a bottling line that was done with grapes grown here within the state, processed then here in the state, that we would consider that line to be Idaho preferred. Whereas if grapes were sourced from outside the state, but then maybe mixed with some insight, we would have to weight the content of that bottle to determine for that whole line what eligibility may look like. So some may be Idaho preferred eligible products and some may not. We work with different pillars of our program. So for our marketing purposes, we're very B2C and B2B focused. So focused on both our consumers and our wholesale opportunities. Much of our time is really spent in this first pillar, this direct marketing opportunity. So, focused on our agritourism operators, being able to help producers throughout the state with their e-commerce efforts, helping out with farmers markets as many of our producers shift from that online e-commerce sourcing, scaling into being able to start growing within the farmers markets. And then our second pillar is really our retail outlets. We have built our program off of this retail initiative and helping the producers that want to scale to be able to work with independent retailers all the way up to larger scale retailers, being able to get them connected with the right avenues to do so. We work with our restaurants to aid with sourcing and distribution. We work with our farm to school efforts to be able to bring more local product direct into the stores. We're going to see a lot of that coming into play this year with the new grants that have come through the State Department of Education and BSU. And then we also utilize our supporting pillars. So our supporting organizations, like I said earlier, that is going to be like our commodity commissions and other organizations out there like an agritourism association, things of that nature that would help facilitate that. We do utilize our media and content creator outlets where appropriate to be able to help amplify voices, and then our school network. We do utilize our online system. We've spent a massive amount of time in the last 2 years really trying to overhaul that just with the onset of the pandemic and everything that really occurred in terms of needing to know where our food comes from and being able to identify more direct sourcing opportunities. We've rolled out new ways for both consumers and business owners to be able to identify where locals at. So some of, if you guys go play around on the Idaho Preferred website, you might see just the consumer facing side. The members of our program get access to the member portal, which has a ingredient-based search directory. So you can identify more down to a varietal where you might find those local products available. And then we have a farmers market search engine that's statewide, a online buy online section, a CSA, organics directory. We have different resources for producers. In our member portal, we're launching our digital marketing lab, which just helps our producers be able to, in their own time, have educational opportunities to sit and learn different avenues of selling direct. And then, of course, a blog section so we can be more collaborative with our producers and helping amplify co-hosted blogs. You're going to see that a lot in the coming year. And then the recipe section that then integrates in recipes from our producers. We have consumer guides and directories. Some stats on the site just show the impact from last year. We really tried to engage social media followership for really driving more attention to our producer community, not necessarily the program itself, but getting consumers to understand and get to know the stories of the producers really who are out there regionally near them, so that they can build that relationship and then hopefully one day go and do more direct sourcing. We do tons of collaborations to be able to help amplify those voices. We utilize other communication outlets like our member newsletter, which is more producer focused, and then our consumer newsletter. We give photography and videography assets in helping, again, tell stories. It's all very much about providing digital assets to our producer community to be able to utilize those to help in their messaging. And then we, of course, utilize them to try to echo that voice. And these are the different ways in which we do that. I'm not going to play the video for you now. I encourage you guys to head over to our YouTube channel to see some of the origin story videos that we've been producing alongside filmmaker Guy Hand. He's been an incredible advocate and resource in helping us put together the stories of our producers throughout the state. We do everything from put these on social media to send them to retailers to having them played even on RFD TV. This says it's viewed in over 900,000 homes. That's more on a local level, but actually it's 52 million. So all of the videos that are produced are actually now played through RFD TV to, again, just help share that messaging. We, again, work with our restaurants and our locally focused chefs. One of the efforts that we have is to be able to motivate chefs and restaurants throughout the areas to start to integrate more local into their menus that's seasonally focused. So we have launched our first Idaho Farm to Chef Connection series, which showcases six different ones throughout the state currently. And we are beginning our efforts on our next series, which will launch next October. In terms of our retail partner program, one way that we help identify local in the stores and then drive traffic back to our producers' pages throughout the state is by providing complimentary signage to the retailers with these QR codes that indicate, hey, this item on the shelf is an Idaho preferred product, it's a local product, and then it redirects back to the page of the producer that is there, or the retailer's page that then there lists that producer. So it's all about trying to get that consumer to see that direct connection. Again, we try our best to develop custom signage to be able to showcase even fresh harvest products. So on the left-hand side's example of a cherry bin that we did in combination with Albertsons. These were delivered to over 100 of their locations, were staged at the front of the store where only local cherries were placed in those bins. We do lots of different food trade shows. So this is more focused at our crafted product predominantly. Oftentimes fresh produce isn't available when these shows are occurring. So actually, as I sit here now, I'm at Associated Food Show's trade show for this year, where we've brought 10 vendors Last year we did 14, they limited this year to 10, but these are great opportunities for us to be able to help get those producers more visibility in terms of the retailers that they would like to scale to. We have individual promotions, seasonally focused promotions like CSA Week, where we really do showcase, educational content about, what is community supported agriculture, and then helping consumers identify local CSAs near them. We do a massive nursery campaign each year, so that's actually starting up next week. We do Organics Week. We provide local signage to our retailers and our producers and farm stands who'd like them, just giving them what we can to help them, promote their local organic products available. And then we have an organic section on the website to be able to highlight those producers. Farmers Market Week, we also run a promotion in Aden with Governor's Proclamation. So these are all just seasonal marketing initiatives that we take on to try to really help amplify, again, the whole agricultural food system, I feel. We really try to bring everybody together on those initiatives. So this is an example of the Farmers Market Directory and some of the other seasonal promotions that we run, both in store and then online through our marketing efforts. We do tours to be able to help bring media out to different locations. Sometimes you just, this, I guess, was an example of a tour from last year where we actually took some content creators who we really were focused on trying to identify people who may have actually never even been out on a farm, picked an apple, to help reach their target audience, to showcase their, potential consumers. Hey, there's places right here in our own backyard that you can go pick an apple, buy product direct from a farm stand. So we think that's a great way to get individuals out to experience agriculture and better understand agritourism as well. So these are some of the different retailers we work with. This was last year's initiatives. This year we're going to be expanding more northern focus, actually, as we begin to work with yolks and programs and Super One as well. We do a lot of collaborative events. Last year we did the Harvest Fest with the Boise Co-op. This year we'll be doing that with the Boise Co-op again. It's their 50th anniversary. It's our 20th. And then the same thing actually with the Moscow Co-op. It's also their 50th and our 20th. We do amplify messages through our digital marketing platforms that are very general promotion focused, saying, hey, it's harvest season, get out, pick the fresh produce, enjoy the fresh produce while you can. And then attend different events to really aid in just continuing to get the voices out of the different producers throughout the states. We don't just try to stay centric to one area. We really do try to shift all over the state. And then we do also host roundtables that we hope we put online through our YouTube channel. You guys can go back and watch some of those that are on there, just as educational content for our producers. And then lastly, we put together a holiday gift box initiative that showcases different producers' products throughout the state. So these opportunities, it's just all through, I'm going to flip my screen over really quick. It's all through a state resource, and the Idaho Preferred Program has just become a really great way for us to be able to connect consumers, but also business owners to local sourcing opportunities throughout the state. I tried to sum that up as quickly as possible.
Well, it's an amazing program, Erica, and there's so many different, components of it. Yes. And, it's just really quite remarkable. And so we do have a question. It says, please share the link where a small farm should start. And that's kind of the question I had as well. When you're a farm and you're thinking about, is Idaho preferred for me? How should a farm start to make that assessment?
Yeah, I think really it's the perfect grounds to be able to start. Just understanding that you're a small farm and you have a product that you can provide. And a lot of times it's our smaller farms that don't necessarily have those marketing dollars to be able to put together large scale campaigns. So by us being able to kind of come in and act as that voice, and be able to help prop you up, put you on different guides, get some people want that logo on their product to be able to say, hey, I am a local producer, and when you buy my product, you are supporting me and the economy from the ground up, quite literally. I think that can go a long way, especially as, and maybe I'm in an echo chamber, right? I am very much in a locally focused world, but I definitely feel that I see consumers just gravitate to wanting to understand where their food is coming from so much more within the last few years. And so by us being able to, prop our producer community up in that way, it's not only rewarding for us, but it just makes us feel like there's a lot of hope within our system to be able to showcase our diverse bounty throughout the state, and be able to handle a lot of that internally as a state as well.
Well, thank you for all you've done in terms of building this program. 20 years, pretty remarkable and exciting. And for those of you that are on today, Mackenzie and I had an opportunity to visit with Erica and Dawn at ISD headquarters and see some of the backside of Idaho Preferred and how that supports you as a farmer in terms of marketing and education. I definitely believe that it's something that you're going to want to delve into. I did put the link in the chat for the website. And one final question, Erica, before we move on to Kelsey. We have a question about where can I see what you're doing in Bonner and Kootenai counties? So how do people know what's happening in their region?
Yes. So one thing that we're really focusing on rolling out this year, and I am putting the cart before the horse a little bit because we're actively trying to do this, is on our website. For each specific industry, we are amplifying or enhancing. I should stop saying amplifying. We're enhancing the pages for each industry. So in the next week, you're going to see, we'll use nursery as an example because we're rolling into our nursery campaign. You're going to actually be able to break it down regionally, the different producers and initiatives that we're tackling throughout the state based on the specific agricultural industry. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's one outlet, is online. And then two, we try so hard on our social media to do our best at tagging and resharing content from throughout the state. So we try to be very active on a weekly basis at highlighting and resharing content from all over. As we do different origin story videos, if somebody's more from the northern area, we're going to tag other supporting organizations that surround that, or write press releases to let the local media up there know about that as well. So I think those are your two most active engaging points. And then our Idaho Preferred newsletter. We also, on the member side of the house for producers, you can go sign up for that. You don't have to be a member to receive that information, but you can go sign up for that. And then we always try to do our best to give full recaps in those, so that our producer community knows what we're doing.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you for your presentation today and for ISDA really supporting our small producers and our direct marketing producers throughout the state.
Thank you.
Our next presentation from ISDA is with Kelsey Brown. She's going to be talking about the ISDA's organic program and what it means to be certified organic. So Kelsey, welcome to our webinar today. And we want to make sure that you'll be able to share your screen.
Absolutely. Let me try real quick. How does that look? Do you see produce?
I do. Oh, it's just starting on my side. Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm Kelsey Brown, and I am an inspector with ISDA Organics. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about organic certification and what it means to be organic, and what the process looks like to become certified. Ooh, there we go. So what does it mean to be organic? This is another labeling term, kind of like Idaho Preferred. When you see that little USDA organic stamp, you know that that product is certified to the NOP organic standards. And that product is produced using approved methods. We have a 68-page rule that goes along with all of the methods that are approved, whether they be cultural, biological, or mechanical practices. Those are all covered in those 68 pages of rules. And the idea is that that product fosters the cycling of resources, promotes ecological balance, and conserves biodiversity. So the practices used to create that product use practices that benefit our planet. So what are we looking at when we're talking about organics? The most important things are that we're not using any of what we call the big three no-nos. We don't want to be using any ionized radiation, no GMOs or excluded methods, and no sewage sludge in organic farming practices. There are some synthetic substances allowed. There aren't very many of them, and they're also a lot of them have additional regulations for how you can use an approved product or an allowed product. With organic agriculture, there's very detailed record keeping that goes on. For most of our organic farms, it's at least 30 pages of paperwork that we ask our producers to fill out. We have very specific labeling requirements for how you can use that USDA organic seal, where you can put it on your label, how you can say that you're organic on your label. And then another very important part of organic agriculture is just making sure that organic products don't come into contact with anything that they're not supposed to. A little more about farming practices. So when we ask you to fill out these at least 30 pages of record keeping, we're asking for general information about your farm, what you're putting in the ground, what kind of seeds, what kind of treatments, what kind of fertilizers, plant and disease management, how you're keeping track of that. And again, we're asking you to keep extensive records of what kind of practices you're using on the farm. When we transition a field or a farm into organics, we make sure that there are at least 3 years between an application of a prohibited substance and that certification. So even if you have in the past applied, some of these synthetic or prohibited substances to your farm, we do have a little grace period. If it hasn't been in the last 3 years, you can pretty easily enter into the organic realm with, your farm or your field. So when it comes to that certification process, the very, very first thing we all do is we got to apply. We can apply most certification agencies. You can do this in paper form or electronic form. So you fill out your application, and then your certifying body comes and reviews the application, checks out that 30-page plan, make sure that everything is in order and being produced according to organic regulations. We'll also come and do an on-site inspection, make sure that everything looks like what you said is going on. So we'll write a report about what we see during the inspection. That gets passed on and reviewed by another member of the staff. And then after that, when we determine compliance, we can issue the certificate. And this is a yearly cycle. Every year we apply again to become certified organic. Yeah, and we do, as part of our certification process, we do have unannounced inspections and sampling for about 5% of our operations each year. We do go pull a tissue sample, and we'll also surprise inspect someone just to really be sure that these people are following the plan. Recently, as in this year, we are seeing some huge changes to the NOP rule. This has been the biggest rule change since the rule was created in 1990. So almost, 30 years later, we're seeing big changes in the rule. Just a lot of them are to really make traceability within the organic realm just clearer and more traceable. What we have seen enacted this year is the origin of livestock. So if you are a dairy producer or a cattle producer, a new one coming in, it can transition their animals. Anybody that's already organic, we're no longer allowing you to purchase non-organic animals and have them transition into organics. And then the strengthening organic enforcement rule change, this won't be enacted until next year, but we do already see that rule change. If you look at the rules online, if you look at the NOP rules, you will already see all of these rules in that new version. And what has gone on with strengthening organic, it's really just trying to streamline everything. For our existing producers, it does seem a little heavy and like a lot of changes and a lot of new rules, but they are mostly pretty simple. They do kind of expand who needs to be certified, and also just kind of streamline some of our record keeping things. Not a lot for new entities coming in, but there are some changes for our older producers, like even more record keeping, which is always difficult for our organic farmers. So NOP, when we're talking about the organic rule, we always have to remember that this is a national program. When you see this USDA stamp, it could be put on a product by ISDA, it could be put on there by any other certification agency, and you are getting promised that that product is certified to these national standards. That 68-page document that tells us exactly what we can and can't do in organic production. NOP oversees these state agencies that do the inspections. So essentially, when you're choosing a certifier, if you decide to become organic, they're all essentially the same. Everybody is certifying for the same rule. So you'll see very, very similar record keeping, 30-page documents across the board. So it's not just ISDA picking on our organic producers, it's all the certifiers picking on their organic producers and really wanting to make sure that, these 68 pages are being followed. So there are currently 13 certifiers in Idaho. I think we cover about 360 operations in Idaho. Those aren't all farms, but a good chunk of them are. So like I said, there are 13 agencies that you can go to. At this moment, ISDA is at our capacity for certifiers. So if you are looking to become certified organic this year, ISDA is probably not the best place to look. But like I said, we're all covering the same rules. So our organic is everybody else's organic. ISDA does cover about 70% of the operations in Idaho. So you will see a bulk of our organic operations with the ISDA stamp. And that's mostly just because of locale where we are. A lot of these other certifiers will have like contract inspectors that come in instead of your regular hometown Joe Schmo inspector that you see year after year. And that's really the main difference. There's not a lot else. If you do have more questions or want to learn more about the organic program, there are tons of resources out there. Just a quick Google organic agriculture in Idaho will bring all kinds of resources to your fingertips. The USDA website is, that's where you'll find the rule. That's the 68-page rule where you can, find out what kind of practices really apply to your operation. OMRI is a really good resource for our organic farmers. That is where it's like a database that keeps track of chemicals and products that can be used in organic agriculture, or will tell you that this is prohibited and you can't use it. That's about it. Local extension offices are a really, really good resource for organics. And does anyone have any questions?
We have one question that came in, and that is perlite an allowed substance?
Perlite is an allowed substance, but it needs to be we have to make sure that there have been no additives afterwards. So it's just a mined substance and they're not adding anything additional in there. Oftentimes, individual perlite manufacturers will get the OMRI stamp. So you can look up individual suppliers on that OMRI website to make sure that your specific perlite is approved for organic ag.
Great, thanks, Kelsey.
Absolutely.
We have one other question that I think is going to be a great lead in to Edward's presentation as a farmer. And this comment plus question says, thank you for the information. Can you point us to any materials or studies that show the value add to the business of having the USDA organic label? Put another way, do we know if there's a financial incentive for farmers to apply for the label?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know the current, the current offset, but I believe that it is somewhere like you can charge triple the amount for specific commodities. And again, that USDA stamp does add a bit of marketing recognition, where people do tend to gravitate towards products that have that stamp and will pay a little bit more for those. So I can't tell you exactly how much, but I know that there is one. And I should also add, it's not every commodity every year that you will see bigger margins. So it really does take research every year, and being ready to shift for those markets to really get that price point there.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Kelsey, for your presentation. And we're going to transfer over to Edward from Cloud 11 Mountain Farm to talk about certifications and labels that they use on their farm in North Idaho and what they see as the advantage or value of those certifications. So we're going to go ahead and ask Kelsey to stop sharing her screen, and Edward will share his screen. So we see your screen has opened up and it's opening into slideshow mode. So I think you're good to go, Edward.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes, can hear you great.
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name's Edward Newcomb. My wife is Julie. We're the owners of Cloud 11 Mountain Farm. We're in Boundary County, Moye Springs specifically. We're about 2,700 feet. We have, right now we have 10 acres. Approximately acre and a half is we're farming. To put that into perspective, we have roughly a little over 150-foot beds, if that helps. We are USDA certified organic. We've been at it for going on 7 years. This is a brand new farm. We clear cut the forest and started working the soil. The remaining acreage we're thinning for fire, but the soil is really starting to come around. The problem with trying to start a farm in a forest is all your carbon is above ground. You have very, very little topsoil. So we've been working on that. Go ahead, next. So we have 3 different certifications. The first one we got was certified naturally grown. Second was USDA certified. And in the last couple of years, it's we're certified real organic project. I'm going to talk about each one of them and why we have the 3. Okay. So certified naturally grown. I got to put my glasses on. I'm sorry, showing my age. Certified naturally grown is a grassroots private nonprofit organization. It's basically small farmers producing food, flowers, and fiber. Food would include animals and produce and fruit trees and honey. It's local, direct to consumer, so they're focused on small farms. So NOP rules apply with a caveat: no hydroponics, and they're starting to try to get members to reduce plastic use. It's a farmer peer review, great support. I totally believe in what they're doing. It's low cost and a simple application process. Local farmers will come up and do your audit, so you'll end up meeting people that are doing the same thing as you are. You can check out if you're interested, you can check out their site. It's naturallygrown.org. So again, to reiterate, NOP rules apply, okay, except for no hydroponics. Next is USDA certified, which I totally believe in. They came up with the standard. It's been around for a while now. You have certifying agents. You can choose who you want. We use Idaho State Department of Ag, but there's other people, even my neighbors, they might use somebody in Montana. It's up to you. It's what works best for you. The application is daunting the first time. I won't lie. My best advice to somebody that wants to get into it is find somebody that's already certified organic and have them mentor you on the application process, because you're just kind of lost in the beginning. There's a lot of people that don't want to do it. My biggest recommendation for going through the process is this record keeping is good business practices in the first place. You really do need to keep track of all these different things you're trying to do. And the other thing is, it's been our experience that it's non-adversarial. You might not do everything right, but they're there to keep you on path to make you a better farmer. And all three certifying agencies have been that way. It's a good thing. I believe in the standard. Okay. A lot of people say it's expensive. There is a cost sharing program up to 50%, and it's a sliding scale, depending on how big you are. It's not costing us, besides time, that much money. There was a question a minute ago about, are you going to make more money being certified organic? To be certified organic takes a lot more time to grow the same crop. So you have to realize that. The main thing is, and this is why I support the USDA so much, is it is a legal standard, right?
Which you're going to talk about.
It says, and I'll talk about this more, it is defined what is organic and what isn't. It's not what I say it is or what you say it is. There are rules, okay? And we'll get back to that. The next one
Go Diane Green. Mention Diane Green. So.
is Real Organic Project. Oh, go back to one. I forgot.
At the bottom.
Diane Green has a great article on her website. I have it down there on the bottom. It's greentreenaturals.com. She has a great article on why you should pursue USDA certification. So thank you, Diane. The last is Real Organic Project, which I'm just a huge supporter of. Organic is about the soil. Organic is about the soil. Everything you do, at least what I do, is how's it going to affect my soil? Okay. To be certified Real Organic, you have to be USDA certified first. So all the NOP rules apply, and you're certified before you can even be considered. I think right now it's relatively new. I think there's 1,000 farms across the country that are certified now. Great podcasts on YouTube or on their website. A wealth of information about what's going on in organics,
With USDA.
soil health, everything. These people are very, very passionate, and I'm proud to be part of the organization. Again, NOP rules apply, with the exception, again, no hydroponics and no CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, which used to be a part of the USDA certification, which is no longer. Again, a lot of education on their podcast. Their site is realorganicproject.org.
It's free.
Oh, and it's free. And then I want to put a plug in for Idaho Preferred. They are proud of Idaho, just like I am, and Julie and our farm. They have a lot of marketing information for you to use, and even marketing supplies, bags, and labels. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff there. It's a $50 membership a year, a membership fee that I totally support. And I think, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think all, or if not most, of the farmers markets in Idaho belong to Idaho Preferred. And that's idahopreferred.com. It's a good organization too. Next. So let me say real quick, you can have all the certifications in the world. Enforcement could be better. It really comes down to you have to know and trust your farmer. So the certifications give you a basis, right? It means that there is a standard and you know what it is. I consider it a minimum standard. Doesn't mean you can't do more. We have an open door policy up here to where our customers can come up here and they get to see what we're doing and they know what's going on. At the farmers market, we spend more, it seems like we spend more time talking to people. And they're asking, you know, what are these labels? What do they mean? Or how do I do this? I wish I had the money just to pay somebody to sell the produce so I could sit there and talk to people. Maybe someday. You know, we even try to get people, look, grow your own food too. You know, you will appreciate what's going on at our farm when you do it yourself. You know, but it comes down to, you got to know and trust your farmer. I can't emphasize that more. So there's some symbols on here. See the triangle arrow one on the left? And then there's one right next to it. The one on the left, that's the original recycling symbol. Okay? So things used to have that on there, whether it was a paper product or something else. The one next to it on the right, that's a symbol that the plastics industry came up to. And they kind of copied the recycling symbol. It's my opinion, it's there to confuse people. Most plastics aren't recyclable, but it makes everybody think it is. And there's all these other labels out there when you go to the store that are meaningless. They're there to confuse people. Whether it's something that says natural on it, there is no legal definition of natural. Sustainable, there's no legal definition. And there's all these other things. And that's the importance of having a legal standard like USDA has. You know, I have the word up there, regenerative. That's the new buzzword. There is no legal standard of what regenerative farming is. It's whatever I say it is, or whatever you say it is. Corporate ag and other corporations have latched onto this. To them, regenerative farming is no-till, but the only way they can do it is by using massive amounts of herbicides. Now, there is true regenerative farming. That word used to be associated with organic. It no longer is. But again, let me emphasize, it is a meaningless term. It's whatever you say it is. And that's why the USDA certified program is so important. You know, what's the value? What's the value of all this? The value is there is a legal definition as far as USDA goes for. The reason why I have the other two labels, you got to realize that only 1.5% of farmland in America, I think, is certified organic. But right now it's a $60 to $65 billion industry. People are taking notice. The reason why I have the other two certifications is because of hydroponics and CAFOs. They used to not be allowed with USDA. And I'm not capping on USDA. I think we need to move forward, not back. If you want to have a certification for hydroponics, go ahead. Don't put my label on it. And it's in my best interest. If you have customers that are going to the store and they buy a certified organic tomato, and then they get home and it's just as tasteless as a regular tomato, they're going to be turned off. I'm going to lose a customer, a potential customer. They don't know that it's hydroponic. And organic is about soil, not something grown in a chemical bath. I don't care what you're putting into it. They should have a separate label. I get mad when I go to the store and I see a certain brand of organic milk and they take pictures of cows on beautiful pastures. And I know damn well they're being grown in a confined feeding operation. They never see a pasture. If you want to have a confined feeding operation milk that's organic, fine. Don't put my label on it. And that's why I have the other two. That's why I support the other two certifications. And I'm not trying to be really negative. It's just, I think we're moving in the wrong direction a bit. I think it could be better. As far as what the other value is, there's plenty of farmers around here that Julie and I totally admire, and they find these certifications important. And I admire these people, and that's why I do it too. But I do think there should be regulation. I do think there should be standards. If you're a new farmer, it gives you some validation. It's like, yeah, I do have these certifications. And even though if I am new, I at least have some knowledge. And I'm trying to sell you a healthy product. I might have a hard day, but I know when I lay my head down at night, it's like, okay, it was a hard day. But my produce that I'm selling my customers, I know in the long term, I'm not killing them. So we really believe in these programs, and we believe in this type of farming. There can be a lot of disagreement on how you do it. That's fine. That's a good thing. So hopefully I didn't lose everybody here or anger anybody. Go ahead and ask some questions.
Thank you, Edward. I think that you might have answered one of the questions that came in, and that was the question about, is there a real reward taking into account all the time and work it takes to do the record keeping requirements and the cost? And do you consider the type of buyer when you choose a label or a certification?
The record keeping is really important, not just for certification. I mean, you have to have that, but and I said it before, just as a general business practice, if you're not compiling all this data, it's really easy to lose track of where you're going. The other thing I said was, yes, it means something. It says you're somewhat competent. It doesn't mean you're the best at what it is. If you're an organic farmer and you got a seal up there and you're doing it right, all you have to do is get the person to taste it. Once they taste it, you got your hook in. they'll come back and go, it's the best carrot I ever had in my life. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's the best carrot in the world. I know that's what a carrot's supposed to taste like. And the freshness and, you're local. It's, farm to table in most cases in literally 24 hours, maybe 48. And especially if you're new, it's giving you a leg up. It's giving you some validation that there's probably a good chance you know what you're doing. I think it's worth it. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally appreciate you sharing your experience, and also how you've chosen essentially 3 different voluntary certifications. And with those, the rules that are in the National Organic Program are foundational in each one of those. So there does seem to be a way that some of the work that you're doing to be certified organic in terms of the USDA, that is not necessarily work that you are having to duplicate, but you're building on with the other 2 certifications that you have.
Yeah, there's 2 other points I'd like to make too, as far as the value goes. Once you start being involved in these certifications or these organizations, your network grows. All of a sudden, you just start finding out stuff you didn't know about, and you're learning a lot more by being in these networks. I tell people, hey, you want to learn how to grow a garden in your yard, take the Master Gardener program, not because you're going to be all of a sudden a master gardener, but now you're in this network, and that's where you really start learning things. Of course, I forgot my second point, but it might come back to me. I'm getting old.
Okay, well, while we wait to see if that comes back, Erica did put into the chat that all farmers markets are part of Idaho Preferred and have directory pages on the Idaho Preferred website. And this year, they are going to have vendors that are in each market on the page as well.
Yeah, I thought that was the case. We actually hang their banner at the farmers market. That's what we think about it. We think it's a good thing, so they're there to help. That's the main thing. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with labels and certifications today, and also really encouraging people to get connected and to network and to collaborate with other farmers, learn from people in your community. And we appreciate you being a leader and sharing your experience and helping the people that are on today's webinar to learn more about what they might consider in terms of labels and certification for their projects or for their products.
Yeah, you guys are doing great work. Keep it up. I really appreciate it.
Again, well, thank you. Thanks to all of our presenters today. For the 3 presenters from Idaho State Department of Agriculture, we really appreciate your work and the support that you provide to producers across our state. I just wanted to take a second to let you know that tomorrow's webinars are really going to delve into some questions that we often get at the University of Idaho. And that there's 2 things. What are the rules around processing poultry and what are the exemptions? We're really excited to have a presentation that is going to be delving into those rules and exemptions, and then also what the rules are for flocks of 300 birds or less for selling eggs in Idaho. And then the second part of that webinar is going to be looking at cottage food rules and value-added products. So we hope that you can join us tomorrow. We also wanted to let you know that we are really working to pull together a new guide for direct farm marketing in Idaho. And we're working really closely with our partners in different agencies, specifically with the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, to bring together a guide that is going to be able to help you identify Who should you talk to about rules that really might affect your farm marketing? So that guide is going to be printed this summer. If you participated in this webinar live, you will automatically receive an announcement when the guide is available and have an opportunity to sign up to receive a printed version of the guide. It will also be available from the cultivatingsuccess.org website. And we are partnering with the Idaho Preferred program to make sure that the content is totally up to date, and they're helping us connect with other partners across ISDA in the state. If you are watching this as a recorded webinar, we encourage you to go to the Cultivating Success website and sign up for our monthly newsletter. That's the best way to find out when the guide is going to be available, and again, to be able to sign up and request a printed version to be mailed to you at no cost. With that, thank you again for being on today's webinar. We hope that we see you tomorrow. So again, thank you to our presenters and to everyone else. Have a very great day.